A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you to the last day of the GST course. Today is the 10th day. We have very eminent speaker, C. Avinash Poddarji, who couldn't take session that day because he had the fever. And today, due to the link change at the last minute, we have to delay. The seminar is delayed, but we are very thankful to him that in spite of his illness and all the hindrances, he has joined us. So thank you, Avinash Poddarji. With this, request our team to kindly introduce him.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, I would like to thank our president, Nitesh, sir, who has worked so hard for orchestrating this entire GST litigation course for hundreds of professionals and industry at large. At the onset, I would like to introduce our chairman for the day, Tarun sir. Tarun sir is presently acting as the member of Odisha State Grievance Redressal Committee (GRC). He is the chairman of Taxation Committee, Utkal Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is also the co-chairman of Bhubaneswar chapter of All India Federation of Tax Practitioners. Sir, as a speaker, has deliberated at more than 250 events. He has participated in many occasions on various TV channel programs. Sir is a trainer and a visiting faculty at NASEN, ICAI, ICMAI, ICSI. Sir has co-authored book on Odisha VAT and also on FAQ on GST applicable to NPO. Sir is the author of Technical Guide to Odisha VAT published by ICAI, and also he has several weekly publications to his name. Sir is the director of the Odisha Capital Market and Enterprises, earlier known as Bhubaneswar Stock Exchange Limited. He is also the life member of BCS and AIFTP and several renowned organizations all over India. With these words, I welcome you, sir. Manishji, sir, you can go ahead with your opening remarks, sir. Yes. You are muted, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Unmute and start your video also.
My video is on, Niteshji.
Okay, great.
Good afternoon, friends. The organizing committee, I'm grateful for having this session. Actually, when Avinashji is the speaker, so the time is always less, and this opportunity I just acting as an introducer to this subject without going, because every minute is important, and we will learn a lot on this today's deliberation on drafting of appeal. So, because this subject is today's drafting of appeal, so I thought let me introduce the subject so that Avinash will immediately jump into the exactly nitty-gritty of the drafting. So my today's takeout of this class is that when the service of order, starting with the service of order and getting the acknowledgement of the appeal, drafts appeal, when file, we got a appeal one, and then the physical copy you have to file. So during this period, we normally have 3 months or 4 months if in the GST. So what are the actions to be taken? And basically the major work is of drafting of appeal. So drafting of appeal, my friend and my teacher and lot of I learned from Avinashji. Avinashji will going to deliberate a lot on that subject, and he will equip us with many technicalities of how to draft a fantastic appeal to strengthen our case. Before that, when the service of order is there, so I note down some points like what should be the basic work we should do before going for a drafting of the appeal. So what I normally do, so I just deliberating here that one is we should prepare a date sheet. What are the dates and the events happened? And second, we should make a law sheet. What are the provisions of law applicable in the order? Because by the time DSC 01, DSC 07 have already been completed. And then we prepared a fact sheet, what exactly happened with the case. And then what kind of relief we are looking for in that particular dispute where we are going to draft in the appeal. So these 4 points I normally look into. So I just putting this before all of us so that it can be a small base to start, Avinashji. And when we're coming to drafting, so we always having a statement of facts and grounds of appeal. And when statement of fact, we normally go to the legal aspects of it and also the factual part. And when we're coming to grounds of appeal, we normally go into merits when we go into legal part and factually what legal points we can make. And in merits, whether any quantifications can be also be recalculated or some quantifications can be challenged. And when coming to technical part, that is very important in GST. And when we are talking about procedural lapses, where the proceedings happened till the order, and jurisdictional issues, at the same time limitation grounds, and then very often what happens is the violation of natural justice. Definitely at the appeal level, how far this things will be stand. But at this time, when we are talking about drafting of appeal today's session, we not only thinking about first appeal, we're also talking about second appeal, though the tribunal is not there. So still we have certain scope of work or some strategy to be made when after the first appeal and till the second appeal, what we should do, what kind of strategy we should make. As per the time permits, Avinash, I will request you to cover, if possible, that what should be done at the first appeal till the second appeal, because tribunal is not there. Normally, we are going to read or we are taking other measures. So, with this small introduction of the subject, without going to nitty-gritty of this, I am requesting the organizers to please welcome our own Avinash ji to deliberate on the drafting of appeal, which is a very, very pertinent issue, and it is the end of the session. So definitely we will going to enrich with many, many inputs and the final comments on the whole session of this GST litigations. Thank you very much, and I welcome Avinash ji, and organizer, please make the formalities. Thank you. Manish ji.
Manish ji, you can go ahead and introduce the speaker for the day, and after that we can go ahead.
Thank you.
Best for the last year.
Thank you, Naveen ji. Thank you, Tarun sir, for your opening remarks. Now it's my privilege to introduce to this August House our illustrious speaker for the evening. This evening, we have with us Dr. Advocate, CA, IP, Avinash Poddar Saab. As evident from the prefixes before his name, sir is a practicing advocate. He is also a chartered accountant. He is an insolvency professional. And apart from that, he is also a DISA qualified person. He has done various other certification from our institute. He is a Microsoft certified professional, and he has passed various other self-assessment and proficiency exams. This is just his educational qualification. Professionally, sir has been actually presently practicing as an advocate for the last prior to that, for the last 17 years, he practiced as a chartered accountant. His sir's area of working is primarily the indirect taxation, as well as prevention of money laundering act, corporate laws, RERA, Benami, etc. Sir's illustrious career can be encompassed in a few words. His contribution as a professional to trade and profession is immense. Sir has been a special invitee of GST Indirect Tax Committee of ICAI. He has been a special invitee of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Committee. He has been a member of GST and Indirect Tax Committee of Gujarat Chamber of Commerce. He has been a member and co-chair of GST Indirect Tax Committee of Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce, and so on and so forth. Needless to say, his contribution to profession and trade is immense. Lastly, but not least, sir is a prolific speaker. He has delivered more than 1,000 lectures, and he is also an immensely successful author. I could count out at least 20 publications on GST and more than 7-8 publications on service taxes that I have in front of me. And there are still some other publications that are on the way. I mean, on the way towards publication. So as I told you at the start, sir's career is an illustrious career, and we were very fortunate to have him with us to deliberate on such a topic. I, on behalf of Views Exchange Circle, CA Nitesh Moore, my co-host CA Naveen Singhal, welcome Dr. Avinash Poddar and kindly take this session forward, sir. Welcome, sir, and good evening.
Thank you so much, Manish ji. At the outset, first, let me thank Nitesh ji for coordinating and pushing this series very hard and perceiving, not only perceiving, but also implementing and conducting the entire series very successfully. I would also like to thank my chairman, Tarun ji, who happened to be a good friend of mine, for setting up and what I can say, the tone has already been set up. I'll fail if I do not thank Naveen ji for regularly coordinating and Manish ji for the wonderful introduction. I would also like to submit or tender my apology for not being able to take up the session on two occasions. One, when it was originally scheduled, I think it was originally scheduled on 24th, but since I was traveling and here in Gujarat, we have vacations of 15 days of High Court also. So during that day, those days, there were some physical issues like I was not well also, and at the same time, some issues pertaining to the family was also there. And then thereafter, I think it was also scheduled on 27th when I was having the health issues. So once again, I'm extremely thankful to the entire group, to the entire committee for bearing with me and giving me this opportunity, because nowadays it is very easy to find a alternate speaker and then get it over. But I requested that I'll be deliberating for sure. Although I was not aware about the topic which is allotted to me today, I inquired this from Naveen ji, and he was kind enough to let me know that the topic which is allotted to me is drafting of appeals. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to meet the expectations of my chairman, but certainly I'll try to share the practical aspects or the practical views or practical experience that I have. But before delving into the topic, before going into the for the deep dive, I'll request whosoever can switch on the camera, that will be wonderful, so that we can feel that it is nothing but a physical conference, physical seminar, so that we can have question and answers and the discussions also. And again, more specifically, I would like to say that it may not be a monologue. It will not only me who will speak. I request that the participants also should speak. Whatever queries they have, they should post the queries, and then somebody can take up at the end. And accordingly, I'm framing my session. It is 4:50 as of now. I'll have to leave by 6:10 because of some pre-commitments. So technically, we have around 80 minutes. So I'll deliberate for 60 minutes, and 20 minutes we'll have question and answer, so that the value of the session is created, because the value gets created only when the queries of the participants gets resolved. If it is not getting resolved and the speaker only speaks about his experience and knowledge, I don't think that the value is really flowing through. And obviously, the chairman will have to comment on that. So he can comment at the end, and then accordingly we can take the session for the conclusion. Chairman, sir, if anything is to be added, you can very well interrupt me and you can add. If something is to be covered or something is to be left out, then whatever you feel appropriate, you can very well let me know, so that accordingly I'll modulate it. Because of the originally it was perceived to be at 120 minutes session, but due to some confusion and it has happened. And unfortunately, I had also committed. Otherwise, I would have continued till 7. That was not an issue. And I had a meeting with someone who is like
Participants, kindly mute yourself, please. Please let the speaker speak, please.
So the topic is a wonderful topic, which is drafting of appeals. But before delving into this drafting, because drafting is nothing but an art as per me, and an art can My limited understanding says that art generally, either it is a God gift, you get an art of speaking, of writing, of deliberating, whatsoever, by natural phenomenon, or you learn the art with experience. As per me, there is no shortcut. Now, nobody can come and teach you an art. Nobody can make you a singer in one day. Nobody can articulate something and then you can file an appeal on the very next day, a perfect appeal. That's, as per me, is not possible. So my endeavor today would be to share or to travel along with all of you in a journey of how the appeals would be perceived, or what all is the nuances that we need to follow. Now, before filing an appeal, we must be aware about one thing: when an appeal is supposed to be filed. And generally, see, what happens is, what I have seen is, unless it's a case of an advocate, in most of the cases of a chartered accountancy or chartered accountant professional, we have seen that adjudication level also is handled by the same professional. The same professional handles the adjudication level. The same professional handles, in most of the cases, the first appellate authority. Maybe at the second appellate authority, the things get changed and the matter is referred to a senior or maybe to an advocate or someone like that. So therefore, my first thing would be, or first initial point would be, that don't jump into drafting an appeal. First situation can be that you have received a show cause notice in DRC 01 or DRC 01 capital or whatsoever form it is. You have received a show cause notice, you have prepared a reply of that show cause notice. So at that stage itself, you need to look into the show cause notice from two perspectives. One is technical perspective and second is the merit perspective. When I say technical perspective, I am very clear about the fact that there are a lot of technical defects in the show cause notice. For example, there can be a defect of limitation. He might have issued a show cause notice which is barred by limitation. Again, I'm giving an example. Lately, for 2017-18, we have received a lot of notices. I'll request participants to participate. Please write whether we have received the notices for the year 2017-18 on 30th September, 29th September or not. I need to have some examples in yes or no in the chat box so that I can come to know that yes, people are participating. Yes. So a couple of people have already answered. That is more than sufficient for me. Yes, we have received show cause notices. But the question arises about the legality of that show cause notice, or maybe the technicality of that show cause notice, whether those show cause notices which have been issued are issued in the proper format or not, or in the proper way or not. So for that, I'll drag you back to 2017 February, March. There was a master circular wherein they have received, rather what they have done is they have formatted how a show cause notice should look like. They have mentioned the contents which have to be there in the show cause notice. In most of the cases in GST, we will not find that to be made applicable. But please bear in mind, that was a circular of CBEC only. At that point in time, it was CBEC. So that was a master circular of CBEC, and therefore CBEC today cannot say that the format of show cause notice was only applicable in service tax and excise. It is not applicable in GST. As per me, that is applicable absolutely in GST. So those contents are missing. So that is a technical defect that you need to point out. And there is a reason why I'm saying so, because when we'll discuss appeal, that importance will come in place there. So this is one technical defect, that the order or the format is not proper. Second, whatever show cause notices I've seen, in most of the show cause notices, they've directly started calculating the differences of multiple tables in GSTR 9 and GSTR 3B or whatsoever formats are there. I'm not very vigilant about the compliances, so please excuse me about the forms and all. I'm not aware about that. But this is what I've seen, that most of the show cause notices, they will simply say that there is a difference between this table of form 9 vis-a-vis this table of form 3B or whatsoever. Now, question arises whether these show cause notices are issued within the permitted time limit in the Act or within the extended time limit. So the answer would be, it has been issued not within the permitted time limit, but within the extended time limit, which has been extended by invoking section 168 capital A of the Act, which was introduced during the COVID times. And if you read that 168A section, you will find that those notices can be issued only when there is a force majeure. Those extensions can be granted, or those extensions can be sought for by the department or by the government only when there is a force majeure circumstance, only in a special circumstance, which was not there in March 2023. So what should we do? See, everybody cannot come to a red court. And I would not suggest everybody to come to a red court, but something which can be done by each one of us is that we can point out that technical defect in the show cause notice, that as per your limited understanding, it is a time barred show cause notice. Because in the entire show cause notice, I am very sure that they have never mentioned, they have never referred the extension which they have sought by virtue of notification number 9/2023. They have never mentioned it. Which notification they have invoked, due to which the time limit for issuance of the show cause notice is 30th September 2023. They have never mentioned it. Now, since they have not mentioned it, let us go back to the original date. Original date as per me for 1718 was, last date was 31st January 2020. Therefore, 3 years from that day would be 31st January 2023. 3 months prior to that day, that will be October. So the show cause notice was supposed to be issued by October 2022, which they are issuing now in September 2023, and they are not mentioning by virtue of which notifications, by virtue of which provision the extension is being sought for. So therefore, that again would be a technical defect which we need to point out at the reply time. Although it is not my topic today, how to reply to a show cause, but that becomes the basis of filing an appeal. Provided I'm assuming, I've already said and I've presumed that we are participating in the adjudication process also. And therefore, this will be the second technical defect which we can point out. Third would be, now we can say that even if notification 9/2023 is invoked, but as per us 9/2023 is issued under section 168 capital A, which requires the force majeure circumstances to be there, which is not prevalent on 31st March 2023, and therefore this extension is illegal. So these are some of the examples which I have quoted, which will point out the technical defects in the notice. These technical defects, and then the merits. Then you go into the merits and reply back. Now what will happen? As per the provisions of section 75, subsection 4 of the Act, the adjudicating authority is bound to give you an opportunity of personal hearing in case he is willing to pass an adverse order. That is what the law provides. Or in case while filing a reply to the show cause notice, you have asked for a personal hearing. So he is bound to give you a personal hearing. He will give you a personal hearing. Whatever representations you want to say, whatever submissions you want to make, you can make all those submissions, and then he will pass an order. Now here comes the requirement of alternate remedy, which deals with the appellate mechanism. Now, the moment you receive an order, there can be two situations. One, the order aggrieves you. You are not happy with the order. Whatever submissions you have made, those submissions are rejected. Those submissions are rejected without giving reasons. So what they will do is, my chairman has submitted a reply wherein he has given a 5-pager, 7-pager, 10-pager reply on one point. Now the departmental authority, adjudicating authority, simply says, your submission has been received on so and so date, and it is not found to be appropriate, and therefore we are rejecting it. There comes an important aspect which is known as principles of natural justice, which my chairman was mentioning, that I need to cover some aspect of principle of natural justice. So principle of natural justice has various, what I can say, limbs into it. It is not only that opportunity of being heard not given, that means principle of natural justice violated. No, even if the order is passed without reasons, then also the principle of natural justice gets violated. So these are something which we'll discuss while we progress. So the question is, what will happen after you make the submissions of show cause notice, after the personal hearing is done? He will pass an order. Now, therefore, you have two options. One, either you are aggrieved by the order and therefore you are necessarily required to file an appeal against that order. This is number one. Two, you don't want to indulge into that. You don't want to go into the appeal mechanism. Now here, please note one thing. What happens is, for example, the department has challenged your purchase from Mr. Avinash. That whatever purchases you have done, Naveenji, whatever purchases you have done from Avinash is bogus. Avinash is non-existent. So therefore, you reverse it. Now, what happened is in 2018-19 or 17-18 or 19-20, whichever year is there, you accepted because the amount was of 10,000 rupees. You said, यार 10,000 रुपए का अमाउंट है ना, भर देते हैं. We don't want to dispute. क्योंकि तरुण जी के पास जाएंगे तो 50,000 रुपए तो फीस ले लेंगे वो उसकी अपील फाइल करने की. तो where is the point in doing that? Better is to pay 10,000 rupees. But the same issue is also there in the subsequent year for 1 crore rupees. Now what will do? In 1 year, you are accepting it because the amount is lower. And on the second year, on the same issue, you are contesting. So please bear in mind, this is again to be looked into very deeply, that we should not compromise with the right of appeal merely because the amount is on a lower side. That should not be done, because the moment you will pay for the purchases from Avinash and the sales to Mr. Naveen, the moment you will pay, it will be deemed to be admitted. And since it is an admitted, you have already said that yes, the purchases were bogus. So next year में अब आप कैसे बताएंगे कि नहीं purchases तो genuine थे?
Sir, can I ask a question on this point,
Sir,
sir?
I'll request you to please note down the queries.
Fine.
because of the limitation of time.
Absolutely.
I'll answer all the queries. Just give me some time so that the flow continues. Actually क्या होता है सर, हमारे पास कोई presentation नहीं होता है, हमारे पास कोई मटेरियल नहीं होता, जो भी यहाँ पे चल रहा है वो एक फ्लो में चल रहा है. If I lose that flow, things will be difficult for me to gain that flow again. So that is the only request. So therefore, while exercising the right of appeal, we have to look into the depth and width of the order. And there comes the professional experience. Now, let me know one thing. I'm asking from each one of you. Right of appeal is what? Whether it is a statutory appeal which is mandatorily to be exercised or not. Whether it is mandatorily to be exercised or not. In case you feel that the order is not appropriate. Yes or no?
Should be.
Okay.
Yes, it's mandatory.
Okay. Now, again, here comes a question that appeal is certainly a right which is mentioned or which is coming out of a statute, and therefore it becomes a statutory right, correct? The moment you feel that an order is aggrieved or you are aggrieved by an order which is not passed appropriately, we need to look into what defects are there in the order. And then answer whether it is yes or no. Reason being, if the defects are there which are pertaining to the violation of principles of natural justice, or which are pertaining to the jurisdictional authority of that appellate authority, he do not have jurisdiction of the passing in such an order, or adjudicating authority. He has no jurisdiction to pass an order. For example, monetary limits. He was having a monetary limit of 1 lakh rupees. He has passed an order of 1 crore rupees, which is not permissible in law. So these are the technical defects. If there are found to be any kind of technical defects, then you may not exercise appeal. Here comes the important point. Appeal is a right to be exercised, correct? But whether appeal is mandatorily to be exercised, the answer is no. When no, when you are permitted to refrain from filing or refrain from exercising a statutory alternate remedy is when it is absolutely violative of principle of natural justice. It has a technical defect, no jurisdiction is there, the order is absolutely unreasoned. In all these situations, you are not supposed to go to alternate remedy. You can directly go to the writ court. Reason being, I have come across a lot of orders, and I've filed petitions before Bombay, Gujarat, and multiple high courts, challenging the orders directly to the courts. The reason is, what to file an appeal against an order which is absolutely silent? If order doesn't say anything about the arguments that you have or the submissions that you have made, it's a single liner saying that your submissions are rejected or dismissed, or your submissions are not appropriate. How would you come to know that which submissions you made which were not found to be appropriate and on which grounds? वहां आप अपील नहीं फाइल करेंगे, मेरे हिसाब से अपील फाइल करना बेटर नहीं है. Reason being, there are two reasons of that. One, you will have to pay pre-deposit of 10%. Pre-deposit of 10% now is mandatory. Before filing appeal, you will have to pay. See, in service tax and excise regime, what was happening? You are allowed to file appeal, and then thereafter pre-deposit was there of 7.5% or 10%, depending on the appellate authority. But in GST, it is mandatory. While filing an appeal, you will have to pay 10%. And second is the powers of the appellate authority. Sir, appellate authority do not have power to remand it back. Section 107, subsection 11. If you read that section, it clearly says that the remanding power is not there, meaning thereby the first appellate authority cannot remand back. अब आपको उसने सुना ही नहीं, वो ऑर्डर ही उसने बराबर ठीक से पास नहीं किया, रीजंस नहीं दिए, अब आप रिमांड कराए बिना आपके पास ऑप्शन क्या है? And the power of remand is not there. So unnecessarily he will have to confirm or he will have to annul that order. Annulment is almost impossible. So what he will do is he will confirm it. So therefore, I would suggest that whenever such kind of problems are there, you need not file an appeal. Don't go for an alternate remedy. Try and convince the court and get it quashed and ask them to pass a fresh order which is with reasons, or whatever technical defects are there with solution of those technical defects. Now coming to an option, when you have exercised an option that you want to file an appeal. So first and foremost, we need to look into the provisions of the law, that what is the difference between the appeal before the first appellate authority and the second appellate authority, because I've been instructed by my chairman that I should cover the second appellate authority. Then I'll come to the drafting part of it. So the only provision or the only difference between the first appellate authority and second appellate authority is that first appellate authority is a person who is sitting in the department. He has been entrusted a responsibility to enter into the shoes of an appellate authority or to a quasi-judicial authority. The time limit is for filing of appeal is 3 months, and 1 month condonation of delay is there. At the same time, there is a requirement of pre-deposit of 10% in case there is a disputed tax amount, and 100% in case there is an admitted tax liability. When we come to second appellate authority, the second appellate authority is not a person who is sitting in the department, but a person who has been who has been selected or who has been appointed as a member, whether technical or judicial, that is a different issue, but he is appointed as a member and he will be sitting as a quasi-judicial authority in a format which will be a format looking as a court of law. When you look into the High Court and Supreme Court, the kind of judges there, the kind of or the manner in which they sit, exactly in the same manner they will be sitting. So that is the basic difference. Beyond this, there is no such difference. So far as condonation of delay is concerned, जब हम state और service tax और excise की बात करते हैं, state was having power to condone unlimited delay. In GST, there is condonation limit of 3 months. Beyond 3 months, the delay cannot be condoned. So first, whenever you receive an order, before jumping into the drafting part of it, I would suggest that please have a 360-degree of the matter, which has been indicated by the chairman of the session, that look into the order, look into the show cause, prepare a brief, the events of the day, the date events, the facts of the case. Here comes another important aspect to be kept in mind. When we are narrating to an or drafting or starting a draft, there are two contents which have to be specifically dealt with. One is statement of facts. The other is grounds on appeal. So there is a big difference between the statement of facts and the grounds on appeal. Before jumping into this drafting part, I would suggest that kindly have a 360-degree analysis of the matter, of the issue. What contentions were there in the show cause? What order has been passed? Because majority of the time you will find that contention was X in show cause and order has been passed on Y. So it is not only something which can be treated as against the principle of natural justice, but it is something which is beyond the adjudication authority. Because without giving a show cause on that particular Y point, how you can adjudicate that Y point? So therefore, your appeal needs to be covering those facts also, that this fact was not there in the show cause and it has been adjudicated now. So therefore, it is a requirement to get the order quashed. Henceforth, you are supposed to look into the facts and the matter with a 360-degree analysis. And therefore, I always say that before commencing the draftman should conceive the whole design of it in mind or on paper. Please have the entire design of the appeal ready with you. By this, generally, I mean that starting the drafting of appeal, we need to be aware of the facts of the case thoroughly and also on what grounds we are going to defend ourselves. It is not only the statement of facts that needs to be ready in our mind or a design of that should be ready in our mind, but also the grounds on which we are going to challenge, whether it is going to be a technical ground, whether it is going to be a merit, whether it is going to be a fundamental ground, those grounds also needs to be clear in your mind before entering into the draft. Why I am saying so? The question can be why, क्यों जरूरत है उसका? फिर अगर हम यहाँ पे कुछ पॉइंट भूल जाते हैं तो हम आगे भी तो ले जा सकते हैं ना उसको. We can there use those points in second appellate authority. No, the answer is no. Because when a ground is not taken during adjudication, it becomes, and you want to take that ground as a defense while coming before the first appellate authority, please bear in mind that becomes an additional ground of defense. And it is at the discretion of the authority whether to allow that additional ground or not. I hope I am very much clear. Therefore, I started with show cause notice, because while replying to the show cause notice, you need to perceive that you are going to travel to Supreme Court. छोटा मैटर हो बड़ा मैटर हो, बट आपको ये उस वक्त परसेप्शन रखना पड़ेगा कि हो सकता है ये मैटर सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक जाए. तो कीपिंग दैट इन माइंड, और एटलीस्ट ट्राइब्यूनल तक तो जाएगा ही जाएगा. कीपिंग दैट इन माइंड, यू शुड डिजाइन योर रिप्लाई टू द शो कॉज. And in case, let us presume that you have not handled the adjudication process, then whatever you file as an additional grounds on appeal on first appellate authority, and convince him that those grounds are very important to be taken. And since the adjudication was not handled and therefore those grounds were not covered, you have to cover within the first appellate authority level itself. Because if you want to have additional grounds at the second appellate authority level, then the things may become difficult. I'm not saying will become difficult, but yes, it may become difficult and you may not get that opportunity to argue on the additional grounds of appeal. So therefore, it is very important to have the entire design in your mind, or entire design before you on the paper. So before starting the designing or before starting the drafting. And I've already stated, friends, that appeal drafting is nothing but an art. And art can be learned either by experience, because I don't believe that somebody will come and teach us an art. और आप लोग तो कलकत्ता के हो, वेस्ट बंगाल के हो, वो तो आर्ट के लिए वैसे भी फेमस है. Lot of artists are there, and that artists are either by birth, that is natural phenomenon, or they have learned that art during the process over the period of time. Nothing can be done on a single day, and therefore it cannot be taught. It has to be learned by experience, and that is exactly what is drafting all about. But these are the fundamental things which I'm trying to share, which we all must follow. If we lose any ground to be argued before the appellate authority, first appellate authority, things can become difficult to argue it again. So what will happen is the result will be, आपको वो सर्कल में आप फंस जाओगे, एक विशियस सर्कल में. वो क्या करेगा, आप सेकेंड अपीलेट अथॉरिटी के पास जाओगे, बोलोगे सर ये एडिशनल ग्राउंड्स ऑफ अपील है, आई कुड नॉट आर्ग्यू दिस ड्यूरिंग द फर्स्ट अपीलेट अथॉरिटी, आल्सो बिफोर द एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी. तो व्हाट ट्राइब्यूनल विल डू, सबको सर शॉर्टकट पसंद है. मे इट बी अविनाश पोदार or may it be a judicial member, They want shortcut, they want disposal. So what they will do, they will remand it back to the adjudicating authority. अब आपका एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी पे वापस रिमांड हो गया, अब आप वापस से उसी चक्कर को चालू करेंगे, वापस से उसके सामने अपीयर होंगे, वापस वही वैसा ही ऑर्डर आएगा, फिर आप फर्स्ट अपील जाएंगे, फिर सेकंड अपील जाएंगे. सो इन स्पाइट ऑफ डूइंग दैट, in spite of falling into that vicious circle, I would suggest look into that from 360-degree angle and incorporate all the grounds. See, nobody amongst us is that expert or can be expected to be that expert कि कुछ छूटे ही नहीं. हो सकता है कुछ छूटे, बट ऐसा ना हो जो बहुत सिंपल सी चीज है और वो भी छूट गई आपकी आर्गुमेंट्स करने के लिए. दैट शुड नॉट हैपन. दिस इज द ओनली पॉइंट व्हिच आई एम सेइंग. अदरवाइज there can be situations wherein we lose on some of the points which we want to have as an additional ground of defense. Second, which again I believe is something which is very, very important. Nothing is to be omitted and nothing is to be admitted at random. Don't omit arguing anything, which I have already stated, and don't admit anything. For example, we have to give attention to the forms which is going to be filled before filing the same, and it should be filed or filled judiciously in a proper manner. Generally क्या होता है? Generally it happens to every one of us, each one of us. See, it is not wherein Naveen ji, I am using again and again the name of Naveen ji and Tarun ji because वो दो लोगों को कोऑर्डिनेशन में मैं हूँ और बाकी लोगों को मैं जानता नहीं हूँ, बाकी लोग मुझे दिख भी नहीं रहे स्क्रीन पे, तो इन दोनों के केसेस को ही मैं यहाँ पे बार बार बोल रहा हूँ. प्लीज एक्सक्यूज मी फॉर दैट. होता क्या है? होता ये है कि ना तो तरुण जी के पास टाइम है, ना अविनाश के पास टाइम है, ना नवीन जी के पास टाइम है, बिकॉज वी ऑल आर बिजी in our day-to-day advisories, meeting with clients, lot of things we are doing. So therefore, we assign these filing of forms or filling of the forms to our juniors. And वहीं पे mistake होती है. So therefore, a proper review format has to be there. A proper review of the what I can say quality control has to be there in the office when we are filing appeals. See, please appreciate. Today we are at the quasi-judicial level. Tomorrow, when it will have a question of law and it will travel to the High Court, it will become a judicial level. Therefore, we need to eliminate all the possibilities of any errors in the forms that we are filling. Because क्या होता है सर, फॉर्म फिल करते हैं हम, साइन करता है क्लाइंट, that becomes an affidavit on record. For example, let me give an example of the errors, what kind of errors can be committed. It has been committed from my office only, my chamber only recently. Client said that I have received an order on, let's say, 1st of December. And therefore, we calculated 3 months for filing an appeal before state or 60 days or whatever time is there from 1st of December. When we filed the appeal before the state gave us a defect notice saying that you are wrong. You have not received the order on 1st of December. You have received this order on 20th of November. अब सर जस्ट इमेजिन कि हम सब सीए, हम सब एडवोकेट्स या हम सब जितने भी प्रोफेशनल्स हैं वो इतने ओवरबर्डनड हैं कि ज्यादातर हमारा काम लास्ट डे पे होता है, चाहे वो ऑडिट देख लो या कुछ भी देख लो. अभी लास्ट डे पे अगर मैंने कोई अपील फाइल किया और बाद में पता चला कि वो तो 10 दिन पहले ऑर्डर आ गया, तो इट बिकम्स अ टाइम बार्ड अपील एंड देयरफॉर आई एम सपोज्ड टू फाइल अ कॉन्डोनेशन ऑफ डिले. आर यू गेटिंग द पॉइंट? आई होप आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक अ पॉइंट दैट व्हाई रिव्यू इज रिक्वायर्ड. It is not only drafting, sir, even filling the form, because drafting is something which will come very later when you will start arguing, when you will start making submissions. But drafting of appeal is a topic wherein the form becomes very important, because you are supposed to file a form, APL 01. That form has to be deliberately and diligently filled and filed, and therefore it has to be filed in a proper manner. All the suggestions or recommendations, if any, given in the form should be taken in a neutral way, and no negative remark shall be added, no matter whatever circumstances. Generally, many people I have seen are filling up a form. Either they are not reading the instructions properly or the recommendations properly, or they write something which is not as per the requirement of the form. And that becomes a incurable defect, I would say. Because at times it happens that the defect can be a reason for dismissal of an appeal. So therefore, the filling of form becomes important. Third, Third is the order of the draft should be strictly logical. It cannot go by clumsy manner at all. It should not be clumsy. From a more logical draft, more favorable results can be expected. Why? What does it mean? It simply means, sir, that the draft of the appeal should go, as chairman said, date wise. Your events has to be in the chronology. At the same time, your statement of facts has to be in the same chronology. And then when you are going for the grounds on appeal, you have to maintain a chronology of the order that you are challenging. Same chronology should be answered or should be defended in the appeal, in grounds on appeal. You cannot be haywire. You cannot start with the merits, then you come to the technical defects. You cannot be arguing something which is not in the order. For example, you have been given an order. Now you directly start with principle of violation of principles of natural justice. No, sir, that is not permissible. You cannot directly argue that this is an unreasoned order. I'm relying on a Supreme Court judgment in so and so case, and therefore the unreasoned order is no order at all. So therefore it needs to be the order needs to be quashed and set aside. And then you come to the merit. No, that is not permissible. What I would suggest is first look into the contents of the show cause, look into the contents of your reply, prepare a fact sheet, look into the contents of the order कि आपने जो reply file किया उसका क्या order उसने pass किया, वो आप third column ले लीजिए, and then compare जहां पे आपको grounds हैं आपके पास कि इसको आपको challenge करना है. Let us take an example कि आपके 6 issues थे आपके show cause में. You have replied to all those 6 issues. Out of those 6, 4 get settled. There are 2 issues which are not being settled now. So therefore, you need to file an appeal only for those two issues, not for the entire 6 issues. So just narrate down those 2 issues, see your reply, then what rejection they have done, on what basis, if it is reasoned or unreasoned or whatsoever, then you prepare ground on appeal accordingly. So it has to be in the same chronology. It cannot be in a clumsy manner, so that clumsy क्या होगा सर? सेकेंडली आपको एक चीज और याद रखनी है, ध्यान रखना है मेरे हिसाब से, दिस इज माय सजेशन एंड माय एक्सपीरियंस, वी शुड अवॉइड लॉन्गर सेंटेंसेस. बड़े बड़े सेंटेंस लिखना, पैराग्राफ्स लिखना, दैट शुड बी अवॉइडेड. इट शुड बी बुलेट्स. यू शुड बी एज short and precise as possible, because you will be given an opportunity of personal hearing. While getting an opportunity of personal hearing, you can argue at length. But when you are filing an appeal, initially when you are filing the draft format or the form, you should be very brief into it, not detailed. Then you can ask, then after having the personal hearing, you can ask for a detailed submission, written submissions to be made. Generally state में हम यही करते हैं. We file an appeal, we go and argue that, and then if needed, we file a written submission or a short note or whatsoever is required. But the only point is, even if you want to have 100 points to be argued, no problem. 100 grounds on appeal, incorporate all 100 grounds. But in all those 100 grounds, there has to be some bullet points, which only can be read by the quasi-judicial authorities or the members, and accordingly the decision could be made. क्योंकि आप अगर 20 पेज का अपील बना देंगे और वो पूरा 8-8 लाइन 10-10 लाइन का एक पैराग्राफ होगा, nobody will read it. Nobody will read it, and they do not have that much of time. So even they will not be able to read, and even you will not be able to argue during the personal hearing. So it is better always not to be clumsy, but to be very short and precise and chronological. Maintain your arguments, whatever you want to argue, whatever facts are to be stated in that chronology, so that that chronology can be established and the officer, see, please appreciate one thing. You are an expert of your case. Your client is an expert of his case and the facts. So you know everything very well. But that officer, or adjudicating authority or the appellate authority is not aware about those facts. और उसके पास restricted time होता है. He is not having the entire day to hear you or to listen to you. So therefore, जितना हम short और precise रहेंगे, उतना easy रहेगा उसको पढ़ने के लिए, bullet points पढ़ने के लिए, उतना easy रहेगा आपको उसको समझाने के लिए. Then he can pass a detailed order according to the arguments or the facts of the case. So this is the third point which I would like to emphasize upon, that the order in which the draft has to be prepared must be a chronological order. It should not be clumsy. It should be short and precise, and mostly it has to be point wise, paragraph wise. So that paragraph A, ground number 1, so and so. Then you start the formatting, which is like the tabular or the bullet forms, and then go to the ground 2, ground 3, ground 3, ground 4. Or initially, what we can do is, which I am also doing in most of the cases, let us presume we have 10 grounds to argue. First, say the grounds on appeal in brief are as under. Mention those 10 points so that he comes to know कि ये 10 ground पे आप argue करने वाले हो. And out of those 10, let us assume कि उनके दिमाग में ऐसा है ऑफिसर के क्वासी जुडिशियल के नहीं ये 5 ground तो बेकार है. He is simply wasting our time. He will not read those 5 grounds, but rest of the 5 grounds he will read. So therefore, give a brief what you are going to argue at the inception, and then point wise. For example, 1 to 10 grounds on appeal. These are the 10 points on which you are going to argue. These are the grounds on which the appeal is being filed, and then you go back in detail each point wise. So that also is a good order wherein we can emphasize कि आप summary पढ़ लीजिए सर, आपको idea आ जाएगा. उसके बाद आप जो ground बोलेंगे कि मेरे को emphasize करना है या stretch करना है, I'll be doing that, and accordingly he can go to and read that. So this was the third point which I would like to emphasize upon. Next is, जनरली एक क्वेश्चन और आता है अपील के लिए कि सर लैंग्वेज कैसा होना चाहिए. This also many of the professionals, many chartered accountants, advocates asks us, sir, what should be the language that should be used. जैसे क्या बोलेंगे सर, अभी फॉर एग्जांपल मैं भी यहाँ पे जो स्क्रीन पे देख रहे हैं उनमें किसी का नाम नहीं लूंगा, मैं एक नाम लेता हूँ मिस्टर एक्स का. मिस्टर एक्स कम्स फॉरवर्ड एंड आस्क मी, सर मैं तो हिंदी मीडियम से पढ़ा हुआ हूँ, अभी मुझे तो सर इंग्लिश ड्राफ्ट करना नहीं आता है, हाउ वुड आई ड्राफ्ट दिस अपील. व्हाट शुड बी माय लैंग्वेज. मुझे तो एक सिंपल इंग्लिश आती है सर, मेरे को वो एकदम, मेरा वोकैब तो बहुत कम है. आई डू नॉट हैव दैट स्ट्रॉन्ग वोकैबुलरी दैट आई कैन यूज हेवी वर्ड्स. सो सर मेरा अपील डिलीट तो नहीं हो जाएगा, डिसमिस तो नहीं हो जाएगा. नो नो सर, please bear in mind it has to be the most simple language that should be used for filing an appeal. You might be an expert. Tarunji is an expert of the subject. He has a great vocabulary. But जो आपके सामने बैठने वाला है, with due respect to them, he should also have that vocabulary. He should understand what points you are raising. So you should be as precise and as simple in language. There has to be a very simple language, but technical language. I'm again repeating, the language of the appeal or the draft has to be simple so that he can understand it. जो language में अभी मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, I'm not using any jugglery. I'm not using any hard this vocabulary कि बहुत technical legal words use करें. No, that is not required. Be as simple as possible, but be technical. Don't be general. If this is the ground on which you are filing an appeal, then why that ground? That has to be a technical, clear ground, not a general ground कि आपने नहीं, आपकी इच्छा हुई तो आपने ground लिख दिया. No, that is not permissible. That should not be adopted while drafting any reply. Forget about appeal. Any document that you are drafting, never be general. Be specific, be persuasive, and be very simple. That is what I would suggest. So therefore, the language adopted or language employed has to be technical, but not the jargons of vocabulary or legal jargons. It should be a very simple language, which is easy to understand and easy to digest. So therefore, I say that legal language should be to the possible extent or utmost possible extent precise and accurate. It has to be precise and accurate. Don't use some words. For example, he has passed an order on a point. There was a difference between GSTR 2 capital A and GSTR 3B input tax credit. Now he has passed an order. You are filing an appeal. Don't start explaining 16. Don't start explaining 16.2. Don't start explaining 16.2C and all those sections. That is not required, sir. While filing ground on appeal, you simply say that the mere finding of a difference doesn't mean that it will be, or it is a wrongful availment or utilization of input tax credit. You have to deal with the facts of the case which has not been dealt with here, and therefore appeal. This becomes a ground on appeal. कि केवल आपने देखा कि डिफरेंस आ रहा है 2A to 3B में, उसकी वजह से आप ऑर्डर थोड़ी पास कर दोगे. यू शुड हैव looked into my submissions, what submissions I have made. You should have looked into that the credit was eligible. आपका डिफरेंस इसलिए आ रहा है क्योंकि नेक्स्ट मंथ में आपको वो आईटीसी का 2A में दिख रहा है, या डिफरेंस इसलिए आ रहा है क्योंकि मैंने नेक्स्ट मंथ में आईटीसी लिया है. सो ऑल दोस jargons of legal language has to be very simple, but it has to be very technical and accurate. That is what I would suggest. Henceforth, I can say that wherever and whatever is required to be written, it shall be written very precisely, especially the ground of appeal. Don't be so detailed, because ऐसे भी मैंने देखा है जब 50-50 पेज की अपील होती है, सर nobody has that time to read that appeal of 50 pages. वो स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड देखते ही आपका मुंह बना लेगा अपना कि यार ये कौन आ गया 50 पेज की अपील लेके, and he will try to dismiss it or he will try to dispose it, whatever may be the reason. So because at every step you have a upper higher up, तो बोलेगा जाने देते हैं, 50 पेज की अपील कौन भरेगा, डिसमिस कर देते हैं, ऊपर जाएगा वो. आप भी ऑनेस्टली अगर आप बोलें, अगर आप सोचें, तो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द अपील्स आर इमर्जिंग बिकॉज ऑफ द ऑर्डर्स विच आर पास सेइंग दैट तरुण जी क्यों आप इसमें यहाँ लिटिगेट कर रहे हो, मैं इसमें ऑर्डर आपके अगेंस्ट में ही दूंगा, आप अपील फाइल कर लेना, वहां निकल जाओगे. This is exactly what is happening. They know that this is what they are doing or what order they are passing is wrong. It will not stand before the appellate authority, but even then they will pass the order and then they will say कि सर आप अपील में चले जाइएगा, वहां पे आपका निकल जाएगा. So these things are the realities, and therefore while writing the grounds on appeal, it has to be precisely written, not in great detail, so that nobody stops you to file a detailed written submission. Once your appeal gets over, once the personal hearing is over, file a detailed written submission to bring on record all the grounds in detail, all the relied upon judgments of the Supreme Court, High Court. कौन रोक रहा है आपको? लेकिन शुरू में मत फाइल करो, क्योंकि शुरू में वो 50 पेज की अपील देख के मेरे जैसा अगर मैं अपीलेट अथॉरिटी होऊंगा तो मैं बोलूंगा 50 पेज का अपील तो कौन पड़ेगा, डिसमिस कर दो इसको. बिकॉज वहां पे सरकारी लोगों को कोई सजा नहीं होती ना सर. अगर आपकी चीज को वो इग्नोर कर देंगे, अवॉइड कर देंगे, देन देयर इज नो पनिशमेंट टू देम, सो देयरफॉर दे कैन डिसाइड व्हाटसोएवर. एंड हमने सुना है सर, अंपायर अगर गलत डिसीजन भी देगा तो भी उसको चैलेंज नहीं कर सकते, चाहे आपके वर्ल्ड कप का फाइनल ही क्यों ना हो. Nobody can challenge that, because whatever he says is correct, and the same is happening to the quasi judicial authorities and authorities, because you have a challenging mode. You can challenge to the appellate forum, but you cannot say that he has passed with some malified intention. Anyways, now comes another important aspect, which as per me is the draft must be readily intelligible to layman and free from ambiguity. The draft should be in such a way that it should be absolutely free from ambiguity. उसको पढ़ने के बाद भी इंटरप्रेट करना पड़े वैसा ड्राफ्ट नहीं होना चाहिए. Many people drafts in such a way that even that draft needs an interpretation, and therefore avoid using longer sentences. 4 लाइन का सेंटेंस मत बनाइए सर, आधे आधे लाइन का, एक एक लाइन का 4 लाइन में बना लीजिए, आप 4 बार में बना लीजिए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, माई नेम इज अविनाश पोदार. अब it can be, my name is Avinash Podar, I have been born on so and so date, I have been indulging into so and so, I have this profession. ये मैं एक पैराग्राफ ही पढ़ लूँ. अब उसी पैराग्राफ में कहीं अगर कोई कंफ्यूजन आ जाए तो दैट बिकम्स अ रीजन फॉर इंटरप्रिटेशन, एंड देयर विल बी लैक्यूना और देयर विल बी एन एम्बिग्यूटी. So we need to avoid that ambiguity, and therefore the draft have to be so intelligent that even a layman can understand, and it is absolutely free from ambiguity or even conceivable misinterpretation. There should not be a reading, or there should not be a draft which while reading it we get confused, or the conception is not there. Okay, what I want to say, it is not being clarified. So therefore the draftsman has to be aware of the rules of legal interpretation, that what kind of interpretation has to be applied, and also the case laws on meaning of particular words, and choose his phraseology to fit them. Let me give one example. Rule 142, subrule 1 capital A. It says that whenever a show cause notice has to be issued under section 73 or 74, the proper officer may issue a form or a pre-intimation in DRC 01 capital A. Now what is happening is, most of professionals also and most of the departmental officers also started believing that since it has been what I can say, changed from, or since it has been substituted from the word shall to may, now it has become optional to give DRC01 capital A. My limited understanding says still it is mandatory. It is yet not made optional. The word may doesn't mean that it is optional. It has been given as a discretion to the authorities. May means discretion. It has been given as a discretion to the authorities that now you have a discretion if you want to issue DRC01 capital A or not. If you don't want to issue DRC01 capital A, you will have to mention this while issuing DRC01A1 that why you have not issued DRC01 capital A. Meaning thereby still it is not discretion. Sorry, it is still it is not optional. It is discretionary, and therefore whenever a discretion is adopted, for example, 1000 से लेके 10,000 तक पेनल्टी इम्पोज कर सकते हैं. तो सर 1000 क्यों इम्पोज की, 5000 क्यों इम्पोज की और 10,000 क्यों इम्पोज की? You will have to write it down that these are the reasons on the basis of which I am imposing a penalty which is falling to this 5,000 rupees, 1,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, looking into the gravity of the case. So therefore it is an intentional this thing. So henceforth, when you will draft an appeal where you want to challenge that DRC1 was directly issued and DRC01 capital A was not issued because the officer considered that it is an option. So therefore, my humble submission would be that this is still not an option. And if you want to exercise the discretion which is given to him, then because of this judgment of so and so courts, Manilal करके एक judgment है Delhi High Court का, on that judgment basis, I am saying that it is still discretionary, and therefore to exercise the discretion, the reasons has to be given that why he has exercised the discretion, why DRC01 capital A was not given to me. So you have to use not only a legal language, not only an intelligible language, which is understandable to a layman, but also the language has to be free from ambiguity. At the same time, the interpretations should not be coming out of it. And if you want to rely on any case law, then you also have to mention that these are the cases and why you are relying on those cases, because the cases can be different on facts, but the question of law can be same. For example, this may word. So आप may word के जितने judgments है सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जहाँ पे may को interpret किया है वहां पे आप ले आइए may और shall को जहाँ पे difference है. So these are some of the points which I wanted to share. And then if I say that if we have to derive some of the principles, I'll take just 15 minutes more. If some of the principles have to be derived, that what will be those principles? First, a legal writing or a draft has to be composed of words, sentences, and units of sentences. For example, paragraphs, articles. So be precise and be short as much as possible. That becomes the first principle of any good drafting as per me. Because you are not drafting a novel. You are not drafting a commentary. Even if you read the commentaries, अगर आप कोई चतुर्वेदी पितृसरिया आप खोल के देखें, आप कांगा पालकी वाला खोल के देखें, तो in each point you will find single line only. Single line and then the case law. Single line, then the judgment. Single line, then the judgment. Why a single line? So that you can identify the question which was raised before the court and how the court has decided it. That's it, sir. इससे ज्यादा आपको जरूरत नहीं है. Don't see, while drafting appeal, we are not expected to show our knowledge to the officer. Never. Don't show our knowledge. Because उसका ego हट हो जाएगा सर. सब कुछ करो, जयकांत शिकरेगा, ego हट मत करो. Simple. So it is not a case that we want to show or we want to showcase the knowledge that we possess. No, that is not required at all. You have to be on your grounds on appeal in the simplest possible way. Next is, when it comes to the art of legal composition, the choice of words, the order of sentences, the arrangement of articles, clauses, paragraphs, sections, or by whatever other name the divisions of the whole writing to be composed of are called. Meaning thereby, the point is that whenever you have to adopt an art of legal drafting, it should be open to you, or it is open to you to choice the word which is appropriate word. Don't use a word which is a legal jargon, which you believe or which as per you also is difficult to understand. उसको सर वो डिक्शनरी लेके बैठने की आदत नहीं होती है उन ऑफिसर्स को. So he will not sit with a dictionary. He will say what क्या लिखा है. It is unable to understand, and he will pass an order. So it should be, the word should be chosen which are the simplest of the simple word and the most common words, not the exceptional words. Use common words. The order of sentence, this we have already discussed, that the chronology has to be maintained. It has to be in the proper order and chronology. Now, when I say choice of words, here comes a very important aspect to be kept in mind. Words having only one meaning should be preferred to those having two or more meanings to avoid ambiguity or misunderstanding. All those words that you use in your draft has to be the word which has single meaning. The words which have multiple meanings should be avoided. For example, a post, a POST, post का मतलब क्या होगा? Post has wooden pillar, office in which a person is placed, a public premises where letters etc. are placed for transmission, a public letter carrier. चार मीनिंग है पोस्ट के. जो commonly used word होता है, this is the most common word. So I've said the use common word, but common word also with single meaning, not with multiple meaning. Because if it has multiple meanings, then the words can be played around and it can be used against you also. So therefore, avoid doing that and use single meaning words. The same word should always be used throughout the same writing in one and the same meaning. Generally, हमने सुना है जो अच्छे ड्राफ्ट्समैन होते हैं ना, वो ये बोलते हैं कि यार एक वर्ड को एक ही जगह यूज करो, दोबारा अगर वही चीज आ रही है तो यूज सम अदर वर्ड सो दैट इट लुक ब्यूटीफुल. सर, वी आर नॉट एबल हियर टू what I can say, to make the appellate authority say, अरे वाह क्या ड्राफ्ट है. No, we are here to make our point clear without any ambiguity into it. So therefore, if you have used a word, particular word for a particular phrase or for a particular understanding, the entire draft should use the same word. You should not use you should not change the words, because inconsistency can lead to lot of literal constructions, can lead to lot of confusions, and that may create lot of problem. इसमें एक judgment भी है, if I'm not wrong, it is रानीगंज कोल एसोसिएशन का एक जजमेंट भी है, wherein it, just give me 1 second. I think it is AIR PC 151. That is a judgment also which says that agar if you start drafting and if you use one word at in the initial, then the same word, if for the same meaning, if the same interpretation is there, then use the same word again and again. Don't use different words for the same meaning. Now, the simplest word commonly understood should be preferred. This we have already discussed. Then what I can say next would be don't use, or rather avoid using adjectives. Avoid using adjectives. For example, we all understand what is a man, but when we write, in spite of a single word man, a good man, a prudent man, that creates a lot of confusion, because we need to explain not only the man but also what we mean by a good man, because the adjective is used. What we mean by a prudent man, that should be avoided. Don't do that while preparing a draft. The sentence which is being composed, wherever it is possible, it has to be as simple as possible, so that it contains a single declaration or obligation in deeds and a single statement or denial of a fact. Multiple times a single language or single ground should not be taken. It should be taken only at one time, at one at the same time only, or the same point only, you should conclude it. You should not keep on stretching and mentioning it again and again. That should be avoided. Now, another important aspect, which as per me can become a very good principle for legal drafting, would be a qualified sentence. When you qualify a sentence, is one which does not simply state any single matter, but does so subject to a qualification or a condition. So therefore, whenever you qualify something, the qualification has to be straight. It should not be goal. It has to be very straight. The most common qualification or condition is an exception where the general rule or proposition is too wide. So when the general rule is not applicable, you need to qualify. You need to qualify your grounds on appeal, or you need to qualify the facts. If the order is records some facts which are not correct, then you will have to qualify those facts, that this is not the fact which is being mentioned in this, and therefore my statement of facts becomes a ground on appeal, that the facts were wrongly denoted or wrongly recorded by the authorities. Hence, whenever an exception is there, it should be placed before the subject, and when it qualifies the predicate, it should be placed before the predicate. So henceforth, please be very clear that whenever you are using qualification, the qualification must be totally unambiguous, and the qualification should be derived or should come out from the order which is being challenged. It should not come on your own. It should come from the order wherein the statement of facts are wrongly written, or some grounds are wrongly taken by the authorities. Your arguments are wrongly recorded. In all those cases, you have to keep in mind that you need to qualify those statements or punctuations or the order portion. I would conclude saying this. Drafting is something, or appeal is something, which is a tedious process, a difficult process, and requires lots of precision. Therefore, we commonly use one thing. I commonly use one thing, wherein I regularly say this, and I will conclude saying that only. The more you sweat in practice, the less you will bleed in war. I'm repeating. The more you sweat in practice, the less you will bleed in war. So the better you draft, the simplest you draft, the concise and precise you draft, the lesser difficulty would be while facing the personal hearings or while arguing the matter before the appellate authority. So this was some of the views which I had so far as the drafting is concerned. And when it comes to the first appellate authority or second appellate authority, most of the things are common. Most of the things are same. There is no difference so far as drafting is concerned, because first appellate authority and second appellate authority both deal with question of facts. They are not supposed to deal with question of law. And when I say deal with question of facts, it means that when a fact is not considered properly, I'm repeating, when a fact is not considered properly in the order which is being passed, through which you are or by which you are aggrieved, then on a factual basis, you can very well appeal before the first appellate authority and the second appellate authority. Second appellate authority, which is GST appellate tribunal, will become the final fact-finding authority. But when there is a question of law, it means whether this should be permitted to be done, whether law perceives this, whether law has permitted this to be done, then that becomes a question of law. And question of law travels further to the judicial authorities, which is the Honorable High Court as an appellate forum, or the appeal before the Honorable Supreme Court. But there the question of law becomes mandatory. So henceforth, first appellate authority and second appellate authority are the final fact-finding authorities. So therefore, in spite of focusing more on the legal side or on the law side or on the question of law, you should focus on statement of on the question of facts, which are not properly considered while passing an order. So GSTR 2A and 3B ka difference hai. This is fact. This cannot be a question of law. But whether the credit can be denied merely seeing the difference between this can be a question of law, depending on what clauses or what provisions the law or the act or the rules has. So therefore, you have to discriminate or you have to distinguish between the question of law and question of fact. And question of facts, if it is there, then your emphasis has to be more on the factual portions, more on the factual aspects of the case, not on the legal aspects of the case. Factually, you will have to clarify along with the provisions and the rules made thereunder. If it is a question of law, then obviously it has to travel to the High Court and Supreme Court, provided there is a question which is approved by its state or by the appellate tribunal. So therefore, in that case, you have to emphasize more on the legal aspects, and the appeals or the grounds on appeals may be lesser so far as the facts are concerned, but has to be on a much higher value or maybe more precise so far as the legalities of the particular provisions of the law is concerned. With this, I would like to express my gratitude to all the participants for patience hearing, and more specifically to the organizers and to my chairman for being there and for giving me this opportunity of sharing my views. The time is always an essence, and because of the paucity of time, I had to leave on some of the aspects which I wanted to cover so far as the principle of natural justice arguments are concerned or the constitutionality is concerned. So some other time, if given the opportunity, I'll surely be sharing those views also. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Tarun sir, if you have to add anything, you can add, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a fantastic deliberations, Avinash ji. And the very simple lines I have write down that the simple the draft, the less the difficulty at the time of hearing, and कुछ भी करने का ego hurt नहीं करने का. That's really so amazingly things have been placed. I will look into, sir, any questions are there? I think any questions we can, one questions have came.
I think Manish ji was asking some.
Yeah, Manish ji, you also
And
asking
in
some.
case, if anyone has any question, he can raise his hand. After that, unmute yourself and then ask.
Avinash sir, my question was, as you were deliberating, आप कह रहे थे कि एक केस में if the figure is very small, say 10,000 rupees, and we have admitted that liability just to buy peace of mind, and next year on the same issue the figure is quite high. So if we have admitted the liability in the first year and we prefer to file an appeal in the next year just because of the quantum of the figure, whether such kind of appeal puts us on a back foot with respect to a department, wherein the department can contend that this is an established and accepted fact. Whether the peace of mind angle can be deliberated, and it can be argued upon that just to buy a peace of mind we had did it, and that we had intended there was issues to be settled, we did not go ahead because of peace of mind.
I can got
तो इस पे आपका opinion sir?
See, first and foremost, yes, peace of mind becomes very important, and therefore we can very well say that it was admitted, but under protest. Provided we have written that during paying that, we have written by way of a letter or by way of the note in the DRC 03 or whatsoever form is there, that this is being paid just to buy peace of mind, but we do not agree to this, but we do not dispute at this point in time. So it is not under protest also, but at the same time we have written we do not agree to this. And if the same matter comes again, if the same issue comes again in the next year wherein the amount is huge, I'm afraid see, the question of appeal or the exercising of right of appeal is concerned, we have a right. The department cannot say you could not have exercised. The only issue is pre-deposit. Because an issue which was admitted in last year, the same issue will be deemed to be admitted this year, and therefore pre-deposit will become 100%. In spite of being 10%. So that is the only concern which I have. Otherwise, so far as the arguments are concerned, the department can very well say, and we can very well submit to the department that since the amount was less and we could have afforded to pay that, and we don't want to go into the dispute. So therefore we have paid just to buy peace of mind. But we have not agreed to that. It doesn't mean that we have admitted it. And now since the amount is substantial, we have to come out with the appeal, and therefore we have filed an appeal. Second, we can say that since we have made the payment and we failed to file an appeal, although we wanted to file an appeal at that point in time also, but the time has lapsed. If the time has lapsed, then nobody, no court, nothing can happen. So therefore, it has lapsed, and we could not file an appeal. Allow us, permit us to file an appeal today. We'll file for the last year also. Bring that on record. Nothing can be done thereafter. Bring this on record. कि सर आप अलाउ कर दीजिए, हम फाइल कर देते हैं आज.
Sir, so you suggest to attach a communication with our DRC03? That
Yes,
is a
we
better
should.
approach.
We should. Yes, we should.
Because that is something,
At least the word that we do not agree.
yeah, that is something a lot of people do not do. They do not attach any communication with the DRC03 payments.
Most of the people do not do because they are afraid of the officers who are there.
Yes.
Officers do not accept it. बट होता क्या है ना सर, ऑफिसर को खुश करने के लिए हम अपने हाथ पैर नहीं काट सकते सर. वी हैव टू डिफेंड, वी हैव टू कीप अ प्लेस फॉर आवर डिफेंस ऑल्सो. कहीं ना कहीं वो रास्ता बनाना पड़ता है. तो वो एक सिंपल, वी आर नॉट सेइंग वी आर पेइंग अंडर प्रोटेस्ट, वी आर सेइंग वी आर पेइंग टू बाय पीस ऑफ माइंड, बट वी डू नॉट अग्री प्राइमा फेसी. So that itself is sufficient.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely. Tarun sir, आगे की questions if you wish you can take, sir, or if you have any questions.
No, because
I think chat box there is one question.
one question sir came.
There is one question. Subrata Gupta.
So the question, Manish ji, you take up that question once because मेरा disconnect हो गया था. Please take up that question.
You are sir, आप म्यूट पे हैं शायद.
Please unmute.
सर एक बड़ा प्रश्न दिख रहा है आयुष अग्रवाल जी का. Are you talking about this
नहीं
question?
नहीं, not that, because Ayush ji ka question is not related to this
But I am
topic.
not able to find it out in my chat box.
Subrata Gupta is there.
Just a second, sir. Let me find it out. Yeah, Subrata Gupta. Shall I read the question, sir?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. His question is, for financial year 18-19, audit under section 65 was done and completed by AC with MCM minutes. Now the superintendent had issued notice for the same FY. How to go about this, sir? That's his advice they want.
So simple is because the moment they raise some paragraphs or they raise some queries during the course of audit, they share with you the paragraphs which they are raising. And then you file a reply to them. With those replies, they file that in the MCM. And then MCM take cognizance of all the submissions and everything. And accordingly, they decide, the audit commissioner decides that whether a show cause notice is required to be issued or not, whether the matter gets settled or it is disputed. So in case he has decided that it is disputed and therefore issued a show cause notice, the best way to analyze or best way to read this would be whatever submissions you have made and what are the contents. For example, just let me give an example. Nowadays, most of the notices or most of the audit people are finding the non-compliance of 180 days. That the payment was not made to your supplier within 180 days. Therefore, the reversal has to be done along with interest. This is the most common point which I am pointing out, which we are finding out during the course of audit by the audit commissioners. So in this case, what we can do is we can very well explain that why it was not filed. There was a contract between the supplier and the recipient. There was a contract of 360 days. Why? Therefore, we have not paid it. And so far as the question of reversal is concerned, we can reverse and reclaim it. But the question of interest is something which is not correct because there is no loss to the revenue and interest cannot be claimed. So it depends. It depends what kind of query is there, what kind of para was raised, which you have replied back, which is placed before the MCM. And the MCM has taken cognizance that, yes, this para doesn't get settled and we have to move ahead. So accordingly, we need to place the reply also on records. We cannot be, there cannot be a single answer to this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Sir,
so
one
much,
more
sir.
question. हाँ नवीन जी आप ले रहे हो या shall I go ahead?
You go ahead, please. You go ahead.
Okay. Sir, एक question है सुरजीत सरकार का. He is asking, GST department has issued summon under section 70 for appearing with documents. His query is whether any representative can appear without the party. That is his exact question.
It depends on the language of the summon, because generally summon at times is saying you appear in person, /authorized representative, and sometimes it says that you will have to appear in person. And please bear in mind that this is a stage of investigation or inquiry. And at the stage of inquiry or investigation, there cannot be any authorized representative permitted unless he is permitted in the summon itself. So you need to see the language of the summon, whether they are writing in person oblique authorized representative. If yes, then very well, authorized representative can go and appear. If no, then in that case, they will have to go and appear. The party will have to go and appear because this is an inquiry stage. एंड ये सेटल्ड प्रिंसिपल है, आप लोगों ने मूवीज में भी देखा होगा कि जब तक इंक्वायरी या इन्वेस्टिगेशन चल रहा होता है तब तक कोई वकील बीच में नहीं आ सकता या सीए नहीं आ सकता. एक बार वो स्टेज खत्म हो जाए, आपकी कंप्लेंट लॉज हो जाए, then only a professional or an authorized representative can come into picture. So therefore, it depends on whether he wants to give, because generally DGI के case में, if DGI is issuing a summon, they will never allow a professional to come. They will always say the party should appear in person. So that needs to be taken into consideration. But yes, again, here is a catch. Let's say it's a listed company and you are asking the chairman of that company to come, who is not aware of anything. Then very well, there is an instruction which is issued by the department which says how to issue a summon and to whom it should be issued. Then you can reply back that, look, I am a chairman of this company. I do not have any facts about it. Look, Mr. Avinash is a person who is appropriately equipped with the information, and therefore I'll be sending him. Then Avinash can be sent, who will be not acting as an authorized representative, but he will be acting as the chairman only at that point in time. So I need to write it down. Then whatever he records shall be treated that I am recording it, because he is aware about the situation. So it depends. It's something which is subjective, and looking to the facts, and accordingly we'll have to decide it.
Sir, one question on modification of the order by the commissioner repeats, sir. सर जो इनिशियल ऑर्डर था उसमें सर 50 रुपया सीजीएसटी और 50 रुपया एसजीएसटी था, बट द कमिश्नर अपील्स हैड अल्टीमेटली modified the order to IGST 100 rupees. So can he do so, keeping the quantum of tax constant?
Law says he can do so. He can do so, but if any adverse thing he is doing, then he will have to give an opportunity of personal hearing. He will have to issue a show cause or give an opportunity. Show cause doesn't mean that show cause in writing. He can say that this is what he is apprehending and he is willing to pass this, so come and explain. So if I am unable to explain, then he can pass an order.
Okay, but sir, अगर उसने opportunity नहीं दिया है, then
it is absolutely abuse of power. It is abuse of power, and therefore we can challenge it.
I think, sir, questions तो और आ रहे, but you have a meeting, so we can take up the questions. Manish ji, you please note the question. We can ask sir to answer it at a later stage.
Yes, can do that.
I'll save the chats and see if we can contact Avinash sir and Tarun sir both, and to have the questions answered.
Yeah, so yes, ekdam chalega. So we can go ahead and end the thing. You please give a vote of thanks.
Yeah.
And Tarun sir, if you
sir
have
can
to say
summarize
anything,
if you wish. Yeah.
Yes.
Tarun sir को summarize कर लेने दीजिए, फिर we'll have a vote of thanks.
Thank you, friends. Avinash ji have covered many points, and some questions are still on the way. Avinash ji, I have no words to summarize everything, though we have not able to cover because of space of time of natural justice part. But in factual part and the facts, and how to read out the facts and how to make the legal point out of it, and differentiating the whole 360 view of the whole issue, you have nicely present. I am not only summarizing the thing, I am also putting a bit vote of thanks part of it. So I have nothing to summarize, but I have learned a lot. So because of scarcity of time, I am requesting friends to please offer a formal vote of thanks. And thank you, Avinash ji, for at least I have become an opportunity to hear you as a chairman. This is a big privilege for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Sir, the best part is that on a Saturday evening, 100 मतलब एक टाइम पे 100 लोगों ने participate किया था.
100 people were attending and listening.
Yes.
At one point of time.
So Manish ji, you please give a formal vote of thanks.
Absolutely.
To sir.
It will be my pleasure. It will be my pleasure. Sir, thank you. Pleasure. It's my privilege to actually thank you both of you, sir. Tarun sir, for agreeing to be the chair of the session and coordinating with Avinash sir. Thank you very much, sir. Avinash sir, your deliberations were simply superb. whatever points you touched was actually very, very useful to each and every professional. Even a professional like me who has just started practicing has learned a lot from you, sir. Just for the paucity of time, I thought that we could go on and on and on, but just because of paucity of time, we could not hear you more. Would love to hear you more, sir, and we'll try again to get you to speak to us. Thank you very much to both of you for agreeing to come and take out time from your busy schedules and enlighten us, sir. It was really, really a grand pleasure. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank
sir.
you, Tarunji. Thank you, Avinash, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Naveenji.
Thank
Thank you, participants also. And shall we move on?
This
and
video is live on YouTube. If you want to hear it again later on, you can go to the live channel of News Exchange and see the video again. Thank you.
Thank you and good night.